Good evening, everybody. Hello, welcome to the Talon Spring Poetry Launch 2013. My name is Kevin Williams, and I'm a publisher at Talonbooks. And yeah, we get to make some speechifying on this night, so stand by. I'd like to thank the Anza Club for hosting us, as they have so many times before, and they do it at an extremely at a patron rate, let's say. They take it away from the patrons. And also, I usually take this moment to thank all the hardworking Talon staff who are all here in various capacities. I'm not going to name them all, but they have done a lot of good things this year. The 2012 list, for the most part, is over there on the table, almost all of it, and the 2013 list to date, and of course all the wonderful spring poetry titles. There's lots of other good stuff that's gone on as well. As many of you may know, we've started getting the list out in ebook form this year, so we have 60 ebooks published to date, and you'll find them on all those great ebook vendors, Kobo and Amazon and iTunes and all that stuff. So we'll be completing the complete publication of the list in ebook form over the next 18 months or so. It's an additional project. So yeah, those are the many things we've been up to. So now I'd like to introduce our poetry editor and man of many talents, perhaps now internationally renowned for his monthly text in the city column, I should add, which is had emails about from around the globe, which is fun. So to fill you in on the spring poetry list, tonight's launch, Garry Morse. Thanks, Kevin.
This is a rare chance. I think once a year or so we get a chance to look back at what's been done the whole spring, and I look at all the amazing things my colleagues, Henry Metten and Leslie, Thomas Smith, and Gregory Gibson have done to make the books excellent, to make them look beautiful, and it's really a team effort putting out these books. And so I feel I'd like to say a feve words about them. I visit the unofficial banner for this grouping of new poetry books might read Voices from the Street, maybe, to riff on Megaphone. Is in these books, each visionary poet presents a multiplicity of speaking voices that tells us not so much something about them, but rather something about ourselves as diverse individuals, as a nation, as a city, as a territory, as a sprawl, as a mall, as a march, as a skyline, as a monument, with all of these works interrogating the very touchstones that trigger our involuntary memories from day to day. And so this includes three first collections by Vancouver authors. We have the Monument Cycles, in which Mariner Janis, a self-proclaimed expert in amateur professionalism, investigates our human relation to monuments and works of public art with his characteristic wry irony, rooting out urban interstices where intimacy, emotion, and mourning can still exist beyond the imposition of carefully guarded structure. Wanda John-Kehewin endeavors to speak her truth in her book In the Doghouse, which transcends her expressed personal struggles and experiences as a First Nations woman and mother to offer us a sweeping voice imbued with the power of the healers in various traditions that with narrative locomotion calls for us to acknowledge and respect the earth and also to learn to subdue our warring ways, even questioning the meaning of what it actually is to be in the doghouse. Coping with emotions and otters. With its slightly off-balance, slightly line-throwing, slightly punch-in-the-face humor and charm, embodies the much trademarked personal style and personal fragrance of its author, Dina Bucchia, which in serial poetic sequences also presents a stunning expose, a gripping tell-all about our consumerist habits, nay, CK obsessions that initiate a fight club with our endless heaps of self-help guides. And otters. 110% more otters than ever before. Of course, the poetry list includes two books at the risk of making an understatement by two very well-known and respected award-winning poets who continually grace us by making Vancouver their home. To The Barricades by Stephen Collis is part ironic commentary, part poetic rant, cleverly informed by the voices of various civic struggles and protests he continues to actively participate in, bricking together lines of poetry that shift between 19th century Parisian street barricades to 21st century occupations and street marches in the search for a once and future commons we can all share, or for that matter, even somewhere to freaking live. As for Daphne Marlatt, She went well beyond a humble request to reprint her 1972 book, Vancouver Poems, undertaking meticulous revisions and also offering us innovative new writings in Liquidities, Vancouver Poems Then and Now, where the introspective rhythms of our city some 40 years ago speed up and intensify, undergoing transformation, deconstruction, and reconstruction, in a book that leads us to wonder exactly what our liquid assets are. And so you're in for a treat tonight, and Daniel Zomparelli, the very talented and lovely Daniel Zomparelli, will be MC tonight, so he's up next.
Hi everyone, how are you all doing? Great. So good. Dina the Bucchia says so good. I don't know. Throughout the evening, I will just come up and read some bios of all the lovely poets. I can't think of any stupid jokes that I was going to do today. But my job as MC is basically, you can heckle me, you can't heckle the poets. Heckle me, not the poets. You heckle the poets, you get a poetry beatdown, which is just a beatdown. It's a beatdown by poets. So you'd likely pop. I'm also glad nobody sat in the splash zone. That's good. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first poet, Mariner James. He has been published in magazines and journals across Canada. And while studying English literature at Simon Fraser University, he co-edited I Am magazine, which rejected all my poems. It actually rejected my poems. James works in, I didn't tell you that. They were awful. James works in Vancouver's downtown east side, and he aims to incorporate the multitude of voices he encounters there into his work through found poetry, transcription, and storytelling. And without further ado, Mariner James.
Sorry about the rejection. It was a while ago. Are we over it? Can I retroactively apologize? Okay, sorry. Thanks to everybody at Talon for this. It's phenomenal and it feels great. And feels like it's been a long time coming. I think it has been a long time. I've been working on it for about 74 years now. So thank you to a lot of people. I don't have to go on an Oscar list of thanks, but to Garry and Robin and Roy and Jeff and Steve and everybody else and everybody in the whole world. So thank you. Okay, I'll read some poems. Put a timer up here so I don't take 45 minutes. This is called Bloodlines. Tripped the light fantastic, then just tripped. Spit sunfire, echoed coins, Roman and cold. Back to alert bay, to honesty's goodbye, basin. Hello, bodega y quandra, compass quandary. O lines frenetic, O lines unstraight and blood wavering, crossing and recrossing, cut through with territorial growing pains. Oh, those pesky inhabitants, oh silt of watered earth. Trust me, there was no one there when we arrived. It was the cleanest of slates. Trust me, it's still clean. What is there to see? What land is opened, pleads furrowing, pleads own. Spoiled parallels, quadricepted and inverted, in tune with local culture and economy. The prow cut through the water cleanly and left a wide swath of history and ash. We drank cups of international tea, bloodlines furrowed across the soil and the sand. This is in the Shangri-La. It's a 7 kind of interconnected pieces. Vance was back, fresh from detox, and did too big a smash, and he decided to clean his paintbrushes with thinner, and he lit a smoke, started a fire that set his vinyl raincoat on fire fast, and he tried to get out his window, but he fell backwards out of it and went one story down when a planter broke his fall. And man, my heart was beating like boom, 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 and I thought, For sure, his back was broken, but it turns out he was just fine. But man, he didn't make any friends that night. Roger and I took turns kicking his door, booting it until the frame gave way and the water and the sprinkler pipes flooded out into the hallway like a burst ocean or heart. Kyle carried the biggest sword I'd ever seen down the stairs and said, "I'm going to kill him. I'm going to cut his head off. I will not stop trying to kill him every time I see him until me or him is dead. Period. And you can't stop me." Shaved the plastic from wires for hours and hours, started at 3:27 a.m. and went till 1:23 p.m. Took the copper, left the shavings on the sidewalk where he'd cut them and sold it to the scrap metal guys. They always paid less than it was worth, but I was a junkie to argue with cash from wire that he lifted from a construction site that same night. Cash is cash. Took the money, got a hit from tea, went to his room and did it by himself. Woke up 2 hours later, got straight back to work, binning and collecting bottles and scrap metal. My God, I thought if he was this hard-working in banking or something. Sarah wept and wept, I never knew what for. Her thin frame raked by use and tears, guilt, malnutrition, or no food at all for days, cockroaches running the show. It got so bad that you felt like you needed to ask the cockroaches permission to enter, a cockroach passport. Her tears piled up and up, frantic with this dead or that, this trick gone wrong, this John owes her this or that, this one way to get through a bitch of a day, followed by that cunt of a day. Was she pushed down the stairs or fell, I guess? Broken arm didn't slow her down the least. Hit in the face with a board a month later. Face purple like a starfish. She was like a knot or a windstorm. The worse she was treated, the stronger she got. Beat him silly with a pipe and laughed, but not callously, not hideously, almost mercifully. Blood was all over the walls, the bags of clothes, the door, dripping down like a cheap horror flick, life imitating art, imitating love at its best. She forgave and took his legs out from under him on the stairs one day. He had it coming, she said. Couldn't disagree there. He rarely retaliated, but when he did, it was bad. Showed me her hip where he'd slashed her with a sharp piece of scrap metal, but I got him good, she said. It's just how we say good morning. Sam hustled from the moment of his waking to the time that he never went back to sleep. Seemed to anticipate every word that I might say, full of problems, unwanted solutions, terse and always gut-wrenched. When dope sick, he could hardly speak. Got so run over by himself, he'd collapse in his room and not come out for days. Emerge fragile, rebroken, sunless, and a shade of his former, hair curled into tight ringlets, too tight jeans, and a penchant for black shirts. When the truth about his past and the sexual interference conviction came out, he cut lengthwise up the arm from the wrist and went into the shower to finish the job. Petrie found him because the blood was flowing into the hallway like a river from Hades. He was out of the hospital and back home in 32 hours. Yes, I counted. This is a kind of elegiac poem, perhaps Ginsbergian in nature in some ways, and it's called But Listen, Garry. But listen, Garry, the clouds close to the earth with wild pulling madness. But listen, Garry, every morning is like this. But Garry, sometimes the hunger can swallow me with the force of a moment. Garry, the flies are circling in a swift column, playing in the downdraft of an electric ceiling fan. It looks like a lot of fun. But listen, Garry, he stepped out of the doorway so suddenly, his head mostly bald, wrinkly, tobaccoed and time-cut, round-nosed and sharp-jawed. I was a little startled. You would have been too, so early in the morning. But Garry, nobody asked me how I felt about it. Listen, she took the corner too fast. Her nice wheels were squeaking off the old cobblestone. She was obviously trying to get somewhere, and somewhere was obviously getting to her. But listen, Garry, doesn't your mouth feel dry and bottlenecked sometimes, like a thimble capping a well, so much waiting to come out, but nothing really fits? Garry, the waterfall roared, and all of a sudden the molecules were just hanging there in midair. But Garry, I'm trying to hold back. But listen, Garry, someday I'll die, and I want to be cremated and scattered into the sea. I want to be fish food. You will die too. The sun will come up with the next, whether we're here or not. But I'm moving through the streets and the trees and the wind, and the streets and the trees and the wind are moving through me. Listen, I counted the windows in the building across the street. There are 37. How come? Because it's so symmetrical. Am I losing it? But listen, Garry, the water is dripping from the ceiling so slowly, filling the room. I am building an ark out of these bones I had lying around. Garry, the gate is closing. Medusa is watching. Go through with your eyes closed. But listen, we are heading for the pass. heading for the pass. But listen, Garry, the temple erupted right there in the middle of the woods, and the snakes crawled out of the stones. But listen, Garry, I swore I saw you in a crowd just yesterday. But Sisyphus is in the eternal stairwell, the dawn is crawling up his spine. But Garry, Desnos and his imagination are being deported again and again and again. Garry, everyone should be astonished at the world. But listen, Garry, I sat on the church roof listening to the hymns and the smoke, and the angels head up into the doomed, starry vault. Nothing really came of it. Listen, I can't even understand what happens to my heart or body when she takes her clothes off. How can I understand the galaxy or a concept of eternity or art or even a sentence? But listen, Garry, in my head I'm on the prow of a fast-sinking ship. What does that mean? Tell me. But who told you you had the right to do that? I don't think it should be up to you. Listen, Garry, sometimes I like to sit and do nothing. Some people say this is a waste of time, but I know better. But is there really a library in the sky where every book has already been written in the big wheel of fortune? And is there destiny? And have we already lived a couple of times? And when do I get to choose? And when will I find out for sure? Garry, I just wanted my wallet back. I didn't expect all that dirt and blood in my face. But listen, there's the way that even shit can look pretty. Garry, the face of the wall looked like the blood of 10,000 martyrs. But last night I screamed at the bottom of my lungs into an empty orchestral hall. The sound went nowhere and the lights were not on. Listen, do you think you have a doppelganger? But listen, Garry, what is the point of all this talking and talking and talking and talking? Garry, the winch fit into a pulley which was rigged to a crane which they used to lift behemoths right out of the water. But the world makes me afraid of a lot of things, and the fear sometimes knocks me up into a fist, and that fist wants to lash out at the world and bash it to pieces. What do you suggest that I do about it? Don't just say meditate or I'll punch you in the face. But listen, Garry, when he told me, I collapsed, wailing on the sidewalk like a drunk. Now there's irony for you. Listen, the gas main burst open and the whole city smelled like doom, but to be fair, doom was on my mind. Garry, I think suicide is always an option, but that doesn't mean I have to like it. But the force of the pillars holding up the ceiling, holding up the walls and the building was always astounding. But listen, Garry, I don't believe in angels or devils or any of that crap, so where are you now? I can't picture it, even though I've been told I have a lovely imagination. But in the dream, we were on the starboard, and we're pointing out the geometry of the island, approaching and describing its importance and shaping the shipping lanes and terrible shipwrecks that happened there. But in the end, I woke up the same and you were still dead. But Garry, where will I find the answers to Jeopardy now? Listen, the process fit into the question and vice versa, but form and function wanted nothing to do with it. Garry, I purged all those things from my mind, but I'm not sure what's left. But Garry, I might have changed my name too. I understand the need for becoming something new, maybe now more than ever. But listen, Garry, I remember you told me how you made a fortune fishing golf balls out of the water traps and selling them back to the golfers, though you were never much of an entrepreneur. What an ingenious idea. Listen, I remember the hawk swooping down and tearing a small hole in his head. That must have hurt, but all I could think of was that was your favorite bird. Garry, please take away my wisdom and my categories. But listen, Garry, there's no space in my head for anger anymore, but it's there anyways, and I can't make it leave. Do you have any suggestions? But most things on the radio sound like wilted broccoli. I know you would agree. But listen, Garry, there is desire and terrible beauty and water and grace, and couldn't you find one reason for hanging around? I'd also like to say we are reading on Coast Salish on ceded territory, so thank you for that, and to acknowledge that. This one is has a quote from Tom Lehrer out of the poem that says, "Political satire became obsolete when Kissinger was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize," which you can't argue. It's the longest poem title of anything I've ever written, so I apologize for that. It's Ginsberg and Kissinger argue in a late-night supermarket Bombay, or political power comes through the barrel of a sunflower. What thoughts I had of you, Henry Kissinger, for I walked under an atomic sky and silent alleys, with a headache, self-conscious, looking at the angry moon. In my angry fatigues and shopping for images, I went into the neon supermarket, dreaming of your conspiracies. What obfuscations, what pomegranates, whole nuclear families shopping at night, aisles full of Chilean dictators, Mercenaries in the avocados, hand grenades in the tomatoes. And you, Allende, what were you doing down by the bananas? I saw you, Kissinger, hateful, lonely old bastard, poking among the corpses in the refrigerator and eyeing the Cambodian grocery boys. I heard you asking questions of each. Who killed capitalists? What price human life? Are you my Antichrist? I wandered in and out of the brilliant stacks of cruise missiles, following you and followed in my imagination by the CIA. Where are we going, Kissinger? The doors close in an hour. Where does your gun point tonight? I touch your ears and dream of our fight in the supermarket and feel forlorn. Will we stroll dreaming of the lost America of love, past green tanks and driveways home to our Oval Office? Ah, dear horn rims, lonely old assassin. What America did you have when Sharon quit poling his ferry and you got out in the smoking aisles and stood watching the floor of the supermarket yawn wide and the watermelon bombs disappear into the black sky beneath? I'll read this one last one. This one is inspired by these amazing women who kind of managed to coerce the government and the railroad into changing their minds and doing good things instead of bad, which is kind of amazing in and of itself. It's called Tents to the Tracks, or The Militant Mothers of Raycam. In the dreams of the mothers, train whistles macabre, tracks blood-soaked and steel-screaming, foot-weary and hell-bent for change. Blockading moms reject cash. 8 women from Raymer Place Housing Project blocked the rail crossing all day Wednesday. They were protesting a breach by CNR of an agreement not to move trains through the crossing until after 3:45 p.m. because their children have to use the tracks going to and from school. It was 1971, it was frustration and anger. It was suddenly tents sprung up on the tracks, wet and cold. They wore signs reading, "Petitions don't work, save our kids, children before profit, and tragedy before action." In the dreams of the mothers, smoke, cages and bureaucracy, rail lines tied into Ouroboros, Lachlan Hamilton's face laughing. Raymer Place mothers say they turned down a $1,000 offer to end their protest blockade Wednesday at the Pender Street train crossing. In the dreams of the mothers, eyes up, track shine, promise and future, fury and patience. At about 9:15 a.m., a CNR train ringing its bell and steadily sounding its whistle attempted to cross the intersection but came to a halt in front of 3 rows of women and children. And so it began, the last great train holdup in Canadian history. Tents to the tracks, mothers to the rails. "We turned down the money," said Mrs. June Stainsby. "We are not playing games." Militant mothers, all-night vigil kept by lamplight. Cover of the Georgia Strait, May 14th to 18th, 1971. 6 children holding up a sign with a drawing of the crossing saying, "Practice what you preach, put safety first." The railway heads gave the mothers a sheet that showed they would restrict the train times. Said Mrs. Sheila Turgeon of 527 Raymer, "That paper doesn't mean nothing." Breath cold in the night, lamplight and ferocity, and a will unbending, we ain't taking no shit. The first CPR locomotive to arrive in Vancouver came by sea. Though perhaps no one could see it coming, militant mothers win fight against railway. 2 railways make deal with mothers. We won. After this victory, another. Raymer tenants fight for center. Almost 700 of the 1,200 tenants are children, and many parents don't like their youngsters to roam far from the project. Then came the demand for a community center, a heart to be constructed, joined into the arteries of the neighborhood, into the veins of the tenants, the junkies, the working moms who needed childcare, the elderly, the poor, the lonely, the children, the pushed around, and the helpless. It was 1972. It was hope in a community. The Raycam Cooperative Center was born. Thanks to everybody.
I'm back. It's me time again. Somebody said the splash zone. 2 people. I'm going to jump into the next poet, not physically. Greek poet Wanda John-Kehewin studied criminology, sociology, Aboriginal studies, and creative writing while attending the Writer's Studio writing program at Simon Fraser University. She uses writing as a therapeutic medium through which to understand and to respond to the near decimation of First Nations culture, language, and tradition. She also gives the warmest hugs out of all the poets today. Without further ado, Wanda.
Speaking of Garry, there's been a couple of Garys in these couple of years. First of all, is Garry Thomas Morse. I'd like to give him a big hand for, I guess, believing in me. So, Garry. And the other Garry is Garry Gottfriedson, who wrote an awesome, I guess, blurb on the back, but he's not here. And the other one, well, Garry Thomas Morse was the father of the book, and so Garry Altiza is the father of my child. So give him the hand. So I'm pretty honored, and I think I'll just start reading. I'm honored to be here and honored to have the book. And I thank everybody at Talonbooks. It's different when you're reading in a circle than it is when you're like actually on stage and the light's shining in your face. So if I'm a little bit nervous, forgive me. This one is called 1,000 Cranes, and I wrote it for, I guess, the survivors of the earthquake that happened in Japan a couple years ago. 1,000 cranes. Someone set sail 1,000 cranes last night in the spirit world of amethyst dreams. Someone wished the sun to kiss your cheeks and opalescent moonbeams to paint light in the darkness so you never lose your way. Someone dreamt of a painted sea turtle last night who knew 1,000 secrets, who was the keeper of the doorway to the spirit world that sits on the ocean's edge, he said. Someone wished for you last night an orchard of cherry blossoms dancing gracefully in the wind, reminding you to be gentle and kind to yourself and never forget to dance in the wind as cherry blossoms soar in warm winds. Dance with them. Just be and remember me, they said. Someone dreamt of you in the spirit world last night in a valley of fuchsia, baby azaleas, and a white camellia in your hair, reminding you to patiently wait for the sea turtle's secrets at the edge of the ocean. Someone wished for you last night 1,000 cranes to guide you to them in the twilight and the astral of your sleep. They say when sorrow is too great, they do not want to come too soon, for you may never want to leave the dream world. And so they wait at the edge of your dreams with love resonating, encompassing you, for love has no timeline and reaches beyond the edges of the human sorrow. Someone whispered to you last night you will dream of them on a white Manchurian crane when you are ready to let their essence into the light. And finally, smile when you think of them. Place bluebells in the lightest room to remind you of how grateful they were to know you and to love you. Place lavender under your pillow for tender dreams where loved ones meet. And we will fold 1,000 cranes in a field of flowering sweet pea flowers and budding zinnia. And we will let soar 1,000 cranes over 1,000 dreams above our temporary goodbye. And we will have wished someone else peace, love, strength, light in the darkness, and 1,000 cranes. So that poem means a lot to me because I was also going through a loss around the same time. So can you guys hear me, or is it kind of okay? So I was going through a loss about the same time, so I kind of knew what loss was about and just felt so much, I guess, empathy for these people. So this one is called Mother Thunder. I exist, if only for the storms of Alberta that saved me from a life of containment. I knew without a doubt there was hope after Mother Thunder shared her fire and her songs, and painted a picture beyond my yellowing past, possessing me with poverty and circumstance. I remember Mother Thunder's untrained beauty calling me, as always, from a time before my eyes were open and clear, before my spirit was in denial and my mind was locked. I have not seen Mother Thunder since I have abandoned the Alberta plains in a fight or flight to see and be more than the confines of colonial walls. The reservation does not call me home, wrapping around me tighter these colonial walls. Smother me with memories, but I am reminded of home when my only friend was Mother Thunder. I miss the crawling lightning and the day-shattering moment that reveals the stark of night striking light. That is Mother Thunder's child called Lightning, who is my friend and calls to me from home, who heightens, lightens, and brightens. The exact moment that the rain's fingertips paint my face and I miss calling her name. I miss feeling her gentle anger ignite my fire. Mother Thunder, who makes me dance in the rain, stirs flashes of light across her cobalt canvas, drenches me in her tears, benches me in white light. I miss the plains I have abandoned. I think I'll explain a little bit about the title. I don't know, I guess for certain people being in the doghouse is, not a good place to be. That means you're on the couch or, worse, in the car. But for me, in the doghouse, I guess I was in foster care when I was little. So it was a safe place for me to be in the doghouse with the dogs. So hence the poem In the Doghouse and the title of this. So I had all the pages marked and I went and forgot the book at home, so I'm bored with my friends. Teardrops hang from barren trees. Sickly grass slouches upon the earthly bed, defeated, disassociated. Cold washed out blue, flanked by threatening billows, encircling and encasing the doghouse and the two lives buried within it. She hunches in fetal pose in the back of the doghouse. She counts spiral knotholes, seizing her breath, tracing nature's patterns, now forced to be a part of something else. Her something else, her somewhere else she'd rather be. She traces the knotholes and counts them over and over again and feels a false consolation. Yes, she says to herself, still 7. Indifferent splats of rain wrap on the weathered, battered roof. Thin arms embrace shivering dog, listening for footsteps. She hopes they are rain beats or heartbeats and not footsteps. Bone cold water oozes through the cracks, trickling, seeking end. She can hear the dog's life drum, as weary as her own. Finally, her lost breath returns, and they both fall to sleep in the safety of the doghouse. So I hope you're in the doghouse tonight. So it was actually a safe place, and it was Garry Morse who said that we should call it In the Doghouse, because I was wondering what to call it. So thanks, Garry, for that again. This is called the Gaza Stripped. wrote this for the people of the Gaza Strip. We will never see the sunrise the way someone else not of war sees it, when it rises east and dances west. There is no time to reflect on the conception of a new day and what beauty can blossom when surrounded by carnage. Waiting to either succumb or prevail, another day of eating our provisions and flower petals as we contemplate this and wonder how we ever ended up eating the same diet as our animals who are less of a threat to our impending demise. It is not a thought that enters their minds as they chew on flower petals, stems, and pollinous carnations. We wonder if we even have a purpose, and if so, what it could possibly be as we hide and steal away, searching for food in barren fields of dry bounty, dying and withering away in the mid-morning sun. Could creation use humanity to teach others lessons? And if that is so, how is one chosen to endure persistent fear? Loved ones lost, hunger and hopelessness, living in chance and chains. As I gather my bug-eaten, shrunken wheat, reciting words of possible redemption and the prevalence of good, silently begging the Creator and sending positive energy out into the universe, hoping to be spared so I may possibly make an ounce of difference for those who have lost their loved ones, their lives, for those who have lost hope, those who have stopped dreaming, because after dreaming 10,000 dreams of relief, nothing has changed but the calendar date no one wants to keep track of as the days go by repeating. I can feel the hatred in their hearts as they stare down at us, hating the very idea that we were born, loathing the thoughts of our courage and will to tread and still want a full belly before we lay down in exhaustion. And we pray for the people who want to protect us, for if they don't survive, then we don't have even a tiny seed of hope to plant in our children's minds. What good is a seed of hope if there is nowhere to plant it? No one to watch over it, to feed it, to care if it grows. I let out another deep sigh I have been holding, clasping together my very own hands that can do no more than furiously grasp each other and yet gently hold a dying loved one or a dying stranger. Tears falling and getting lost in why it wasn't me lying on the dusty, shell-littered ground. Finally free from the persecution of ideas, hatred, and living in fear. Wishing and wanting death to call my very own name, if it meant my passing could save humanity from the very same, with the same colored blood and the ability to love another and to want to reproduce and pass on that love, and have a piece of us carrying the future on by sanity or insanity, depending on which side you were born on. These two hands cannot stop the rising death toll. I kneel down, two hands on my head, begging for my loved ones to see another sky of diamond and to hold on just a little longer. Doesn't goodness always prevail even in the face of enormous suffering? Life continues and new hopes are born. I want to believe, I have to believe, and perhaps one day I will wake up and be thankful to see the sun and feel it on my skin without impending threat, and the light and warmth gracing and grazing my face, and these two praying hands have not felt the sun's impression for the last encounter. These two eyes of mine are waiting to adjust tonight, falling when darkness covers us in peace and silence, even the men filled with anger, cold, hatred, loaded guns, two eyes and two hands have to sleep sometime. If only they could see what I feel, see what I see, feel what I feel, hope what I hope, and just stop for a minute to see human suffering as a catalyst that can bring about change and persecuted death as a means to question why human sorrow, human loss, and killing in cold blood could be called anything but imbalanced perspective in the form of violence. Blood flowing down the streets, congealing in dust pools, the very thought of a creator coveting hatred to fester and multiply, divide, fall, and become absolute, or cause his children to kill or maim another in cold blood, actually feeling that death all along was the only solution to divided thoughts, with hatred strewn about and boiled in their minds, entrenched in false righteousness as if anyone could be right in the biggest sin of all, judging me and sealing my fate, pushing position without permission, and unbalancing the true laws of Mother Nature. The cover of night slinks in like an unexpected guest, and the stars appear before me on black canvas, and I know I have lived another day in chance and chains, redemption and sorrow, love and hatred, fear and reverence, begging for reprieve. I will never be a doctor and watch new life unfold, wishing I was not born of suffering on the Gaza Strip. I will never see my mother and father smile for the coming morn when the sun plants itself outside our door. My mother has never tilled and planted a garden without threat of either gunfire or hunger of her family piercing her heart, soul, courage, and the will to go on for just one more day. She whispers as she wipes her brow. She has never planted a single rose and had the privilege to watch it bud and flower, new hope and peace, pushing forth in the brilliance of a peaceful sunrise. The flowers in bloom are to be fed to the animals and perhaps to our children and mothers as well. I have never had the chance to see her smile in the sun without worry, without sorrow, hoping this day is the day her loved ones are spared their lives, or at the very least a quick and painless death, with the light of goodness and truth written on our faces as we succumb to their ideology of conclusion. That was the Gaza Strip. And I think I'll just read one more. I'm not sure which one that was because I don't have it marked in here. This one is called Powwow Dreams, and it's very dear to me because I wrote it, while I was at a powwow. And I was watching these children dance, and they weren't ashamed to dance, and I was watching all these elders dance as well. And I wish I could have gotten up there and probably danced myself, or maybe at least done that as a child, but this poem I wrote because of that, and I saw the peace in their faces, and so I wrote this. It's called Powwow Dreams. Oh, little one, with the beautiful bustle, you are so at peace. I feel it. Did your mama take the time and the energy she wished she was taken with her and watch your eyes dance at the sight of your outfit? Did she color her future with colors she prayed about and chose just for you? Did she take out her camera and draw so near and permanently make a memory of you, whom she dances for in dreams? Did she finally stop having nightmares of what she had lost so long ago, living through you to set her free? The confident steps, the liquid movements, and the proud sweat never left your face as you gently wove moccasin footprints upon Mother Earth's beauty in the sun. O golden age proud woman, with aged grace and painful mind stones weaving tales with gentle lines around your secret smile and sparkling eyes. Are you happy the day is here, that the little ones are unashamed, following in your footsteps? O elders with your headpieces, your eagle feathers and staff, it is breathtaking after all the trials that you stand before us. with pain etched upon your faces like a picture for all to see and remember. Do you see the smiles all around as you solidly keep the circle closed and strong, just by living in the moment and sharing it too? Do you see it in the depths of your people's souls? Oh, little one with the jingle dress, so bright and beautiful. Wind chimes echo with each other and every crowd enchanting tiptoe, mesmerizing, bringing back the time of freedom, and shadow by an open fire telling of days gone by. Do you see what you do to me? It is so hard not to cry as I see being Indian shouldn't have had to hurt. I only wish our mothers and grandmothers and our great-grandmothers were here to see and feel what they dreamt of. Thank you very much.
We're going to have one more reader and then we're going to have a short break. But after she reads them, they come back up here to remind you to buy books, purely for just that. I first met Dina 3 years ago, and she was reading a poem about a narrator who was dreaming about her boyfriend having sex with Pamela Anderson. And I thought, yes, friends. Dina del Bucchia, who I used to mispronounce her name all the time too, that's Bucchia. Her writing has appeared in literary publications across Canada and as art in Old Friends exhibition Funny Business. She's a literary event coordinator and host. She has performed a one-woman show at the 2005 Vancouver Fringe Festival and has appeared at comedy events around Vancouver. Del Bucchia was a finalist for the 2012 RBC Bronwyn Wallace Award for Emerging Writers. Please welcome Dina.
Hi, friends. How are you? It's really nice being here with you. I'm used to being the Daniel of these affairs, so a bit weird to not be the Daniel. It's really great to be here with all these other poets, Mariner, Wanda, Stephen, Daphne. Super exciting. I also just got this today, so we haven't had any time alone together yet. So if things get a bit weird up here, just let it go. First time. It's our first time together. So, yeah, also, everyone in Talon has been so wonderful. Anne-Marie, Les, Evan, Garry, I know you support me because you are wearing your fancy shoes. And they look great. So I think what we're going to do here is start with the otters and then just move right into shame. Sound good? It's the logical progression, right? You're all familiar with the aquarium, right? And there's stuff that swims around in various exhibits. So there were some otters there that were really famous. You know those ones, right? On the YouTube. Like 5 gazillion people watched them. So we're going to start there. Otters. This poem is Celebrity Otter, Nyack. And it opens with a lovely passage from YouTube, which I'm sure you are all also familiar with. Fuck Exxon. Nyack had family that also died in the oil spill. This otter becomes stronger in death because of her strength to survive. This is from Aerosmith, 420. Nyack rose above her celebrity. She suffered fools who she should have given them with a finger. Covered her eyes to block out idiots, a barrage of khaki pants, orange crush-stained lips of dripping children, dads checking out trainer's ass, bent over her pool. Hardly insulting. It was adorable. So fucking adorable that she could be so patient. Nyack rose above her celebrity, could have shown up Angelina on a red carpet, with a dip and a swirl, a paw to her cheek, even though she never once heard Brad's voice expound on Frank Garry, motorcycles, the perfect stubble. She looked great in the glossies. She held hands in public, had the same partner for years, and her partner was Milo, her holding hands partner. They did more than that. You can read about it in the book, Celebrity Otter Sex. It's really hot right now. So this is Celebrity Otter, Milo. Also, there's a lovely quote here from the National Post. Chemotherapy for a rodent, bizarre. This is from Turd Herder, January 12th, 2012. And this was in a death announcement for Milo, who had lymphoma and did have chemotherapy. He makes lymphoma seem like a lollipop flavor. Under aquarium supervision, breaks from treatment to brush his loose coat, massage through to his skin, swims in blue pools back from the crowd, like his aqua-colored home. Everything he knows looks like a late 60s bathroom someone means to renovate. Cells divide as fast as YouTube views accumulate. Same technology used at Children's Hospital, that other place of adorable sadness. He lost Nyack 3 years ago. He was her boy toy, 11 years younger, good as any Beverly Hills housewife. A pool boy. Unlike humans, he plays well into twilight years, into times when bones and arteries are more like accessories, not utilitarian. 12 is probably 70 in otter years. An old man at the bowling alley who told me most males pass within 9.5 months of losing a spouse. He didn't get a single strike that afternoon. Forearms worn from his wife's early morning instruction. Weed, mow, break down that door I wanted you to build 3 years ago. Like an ailing politician, we weep for Milo, hold vigils on the internet. I advise we make small shrines in our homes. Fake or tasteful glitter pens, foam core, fake candles, ceramic replicas looted from the gift shop. The newscaster disagrees, advocates for time spent outdoors, not thinking about the otter. Turns out, no one listens to me. Still, we all come back to his and hers, paused together, rescued. On glowing screens, we watch, listen to visitors coo and awe over nature's basest connection. I advise substitution, a Robert Palmer soundtrack, or Roxette. Do with that what you will. Each view gives the world cute chemotherapy. And just so you know, celebrity otters, us. Otters are just like us. They eat, they fuck, they cower, they whine, they play, they nap, they groom, they eat, they groom, they eat, they groom, they fuck. They want to float endlessly in the wide open sea. They eat, they groom, they eat, they sleep, they eat. So shame. Speaking of eating, just kidding. Let's not feel that. You know what? I'm changing my mind. We're not going to feel shame. We're going to feel guilt. Bam! Totally sprung that on you. Now you got to deal with it. Feel it. Guilt. Feel it inside you. I just got this book, remember? So it's like a new plaything. I'm really excited about it. I want to talk about it all the time. It's like my new boyfriend. And he's super handsome. So, as Garry mentioned, there is a self-help bent to the book. And so, this is a guide to your emotions. And this one is called How to Be Guilty. Guilt is misunderstood. These pages will reveal the true nature of guilt. You will learn to feel as if you've done something wrong, done someone wrong, done something to damage your humanity. Guilt is human. That feeling, stuck plugs in your alveoli, signals to you that you are alive. Each hard exhale, deep throttle at inhalation, is a sign that you have felt fondness and felt betrayed, that you have gone against expectation and it turned out to be a mistake, that you have harmed or crushed, impaired or maimed. This guide will allow you to engage with guilt in many different scenarios. Gauge your progress and compare your guilt levels with the patented Guilt Index. Keep your brain sharp. Do not try to escape the rigors of guilt training. Do not stabilize your guilt. It must constantly move and change. Time heals guilt. To maintain a steady level, it must alter. And surprise, the process never ends. Begin. 1. Cancel your cable subscription. Set a PVR to capture episodes that never air. Black screen, blank hours. Watch. 2. Examine guilt in the vanity, how it brings out green iris flecks, smooths and distinguishes the jawline, highlights, heightens cheekbones in halogen glow, closes pores like mortar. Embrace this makeover. Don't question why it looks good on you. 3. Don't admit you found new joys. Sit with a cappuccino near a clinic, falsely humble. The worst thing in the face of others' unhappiness is your happiness. 4. Commit a crime. Don't speed or shoplift, actions explained away. Creep into the loft of your first love. Not the one who left gloves on the front seat as incentive to return from minivan makeouts. Not the one with the robot backpack, not the one with the high arches. The one with nubbed fingers, working overtime all over you. The one who caught colds. The one who let you wait until it was obvious you would be alone forever. The one, you know, the one who made you. The one. Arrive mid-morning, set hair traps in the drain, wait a week, return. Remove your first lover's hair, shape a body perfect and lovable, soft. Return it to their shared bathroom, newly formed. Take their lubricant. Breaking and entering relieves broken feelings. 5. Don't feel sorry for someone else's illness. Feel sorry for yourself for having to be around. 6. Forget to put the dog out your anniversary the day your aunt died. Let ways of seeing turn to ignorance. Ask a close friend for reminders. Let neglect fester like an infected wound. 7. Waste good food. 8. Keep your story straight. Relay few fictive details over days, weeks, months. A hotel lobby, a bruise, a hickey, a handicap stall, breath mints, a phone number, agenda, a taste for kale, ticket stub, dryer sheets. After these reveals, wake your partner with cries in the night. 9. Project an heirloom. 10. Run. Hound uphill past trails, ignore natural beauty, crest, concrete, sidestep, swipe, thunder ahead of walkers, the homeless, strollers and leashes. At the apex of a covered parkade, take a painful breath, each prickle a swallow of ticketed air. So now we're going to go back to the beginning, and you can test your guilt index. So just do it out here. Just keep track in your old noggin, on your brain pad, with your brain pen. Escalation of guilt can be determined by comparing your levels against those in this index. Levels cannot be achieved simply, and skipping steps is sometimes necessary to successfully approach guilt nirvana. Guilty pleasure. What any untrained person feels, infant level guilt, claim it doesn't exist. Remain adamant. Lies. What you tell yourself to facilitate guilt. What you tell others to increase guilt. A way of living that emboldens you, but also shames. Unfulfilled expectations. What you create when you set goals. Ignore. What you do to make things easier. Neglect. What you try to do until it becomes natural not to do anything. This is a step sibling to ignore. These together complete a vivid picture of median level guilt. Thoughtlessness. What you begin to understand is something greater than thoughts, a transcendence. Don't stop thinking. Defend yourself. Guilt trip. What you achieve in higher levels of guilt. Ascension to a new emotional plane. The feeling of floating above those you've neglected. Regret. What you power towards. Where you rest. Thank you very much.
All right, we're going to take a 10-minute break. Books are on sale. There is all 5 of the books tonight are on sale for $60 altogether, and there's some great discounts as well. We'll see you in 10-ish. All right, I'm going to get us moving along because it's getting pretty late for Collis. I should be in bed 10 minutes ago. Next up, okay. I just thought English teacher. Next up, we have a writer who has been influential in so many ways. I literally stalked her for a period of time. She was at the Vancouver Writers Festival, and she sat right in front of me, and then I took a photo with the back of her head. I don't know if Daphne knows that. I did. Daphne Marlatt was a co-founding editor of 2 literary magazines, Periodics and Tessera. She co-edited West Coast Review, Island, Kaplan Review, and Tisch. In 2004, she was appointed as the first writer-in-residence at Simon Fraser University in 3 decades. She directed the fiction stream of the Banff Writing Studio from 2010 to 2012. Her early writing includes prose narratives on the Strathcona neighborhood of Vancouver and of the former Japanese-Canadian fishing village of Steveston, and several other books. In 2006, Marlatt was appointed to the Order of Canada in recognition of a lifetime of distinguished service to Canadian culture. In 2009, she was awarded the Dorothy Livesay Prize for Poetry for her innovative long poem, The Given, and in 2012, she received the George Woodcock Lifetime Achievement Award. Without further ado, Daphne Marlatt.
The age of a 12-year-old daughter, it's a real treat to have the back of your head photographed. It's great to be here, and I want to thank Talonbooks for making such a beautiful book out of liquidities, and for all the photographers, and especially for Herzog, who kindly let us use his image on the cover, and for the photographers who contributed inside. I did go through a whole list of thank yous at my launch, so I won't repeat that here. I just launch into it. This book has had a long history. It's about the history of the city, and it has a long history because the first part of it, many of the poems, all of the poems in the first part appeared in a 1972 book, an early book of mine called Vancouver Poems, which Coach House Press published in Toronto. And some of those poems have been dropped for this book. Some of them have been rewritten. A few of them stand as they were. And of course, 72 is a long time ago in the history of the city. I mean, if otters can go from 12 to 70 in a leap, well, that's sort of what the city has been doing. So there's a new series at the back
that tries to come to grips with that. And I'll read from both parts. So these first ones are from Vancouver poems, revised a little. So remember that in terms of the history of the city and the gender as you listen to this. Gender images. Femina, you who fail, subtly seeking with your face angled downward to the floor, to cups, to broom slivers in the cracks, to sea below, to hands and feet of people walking in proximity to you, who wait up in your room that sideways to the street holds certain figures in a gloom. When the whiteness of light casts its sheen over your face, you sit reading. Your eyes seem closed in their downward looking, in the electric enumeration of eyes of strangers reading you, and bedposts glutted with the heads of fishing corks which you, as yet, will still hold on to. All evening, air slowly darkened round the windows you were caught in, rings in a glass jar. Coherent images of light fist into themselves after the bulb has gone just out. It's then the rock cod drift up through blankets of the sea to reach you. They flung the door open onto the city. You saw her framed, her long green lager skirt ankle-tied, heels poised on your fire escape. The precision of those heels, paused in third position, knees bent, one fishy sleeve out to the door. Oh, the fabulous laugh of the sea trapped in a jar. Oh, the tearing of water. Where you are. The bones of your face are pinned with syllables, sea-wrack, adrift of other rhymes. The city is skewed on a map, and so I always get my directions confused for downtown, but I would say on the northeastern side of Burrard Bridge, end of Burrard Bridge, there used to be a moving billboard with waves for the Blackball Ferry. And the Blackball Ferry was one of the great ferry systems on this coast for a short while. So this is the 70s again. Morning makes that light up billboard face a time we near you, clear the air we stuttered in mid last night's news. B-side, by side, beside the water's edge we come up to ignore bridge-wise, say, the siding of houses dark or dank with what sea does. There is that smell the air will never get rid of, riddled, or crushed by ground coming up, gravel. We could believe in grass growing through cement in parking lots they've turned their yards into. This billboard fronts a house or sides it, ferry sidling above an abyss, the bridge. Blackball, you ferried into high seas of the mind. This time skin has touched thin air, raising humor. This time skin has touched thin air, raising rumor. Bones raised this morning, ear honed in the sharp gaze of a gull, bridge poised, momentarily the rail he perches on. For purchase, specific to your head, the waves loomed above, late in streetlights' desolate glare, its pitch and drop. Where you were, two of you, on the billboard ledge, swinging your legs. What? The cop who stopped. Only getting some air, sir. It is not instant. These houses blind to the bay. It does not recognize a sign. This news, whose rammed to the wall night has seeped into. Its constant rain, raising your collar, raising gray linoleum, burst tomato, mildew sill, roach stain in the wood, rotting, no name. What a rock thrown in, hit by, designed by what casual will to break in, out, through. Black ball Chinook 2 on schedule churns through troughs and peaks. It does not fail, is not found wanting. You want, you are found, cut to the quick. Under grass green light, a mercury vapor lamp pours out for hope. Hallucinatory, shatters love sometime. That was written for someone I knew through a friend who was one of the casualties of LSD in those days. This was really written for Carnegie Library steps, which have been a kind of fixture in the city for a long time. It also features another fixture with a racist history, actually, the white lunch cafeteria too. I don't know if any of you have seen the one of the Bramble Street photographs of the old sign with the figures, the small figures, circling around a giant white teacup. Slimy. Mackerel sea sky, eyes down, lined public library steps, the gulls mean what they cry. Time. How many stoop to a dead fish? How would you like a tail in the eye? Scales a little bit roomy, but otherwise. Off the point, they go fishing under latches of the bridge, rusty, rattling their rods. Tide swirls down deep there, noon rains in the street, a white lunch. Blue Hubbard figures hump endless round, the cups too big to get into. Would it hold anything but rain? Steams on a hot day, the park lunches. Hold my hand in this cracked vinyl booth where bread wilts. I love you, but don't fling your raincoat over my head. It smells wet. Hair hangs into my cup. Love rains. You will go far somewhere. Where? Matter inserts relation. Heels, float like hulls of hands under the wharf. Rats dockside, carrying orchids up, and the port, and the starred on board lights. Milk run Amelia ends up on library steps, a cigarette, some soup. A wet day steams up the insides of their eyes. I want to know how gulls keep flying. And this is the last one from the early poems. Yes. It's really a North Van poem. Free the dead dreaming mercenary of some token of their worth. Holes, One wet loafer equals 2, 3, beer, herself bargained for. Gift giving, a pride once, a name lived up to, unhoused now. Slave to hotel parlors and their musty carpet corridors, their puke tile floor green painted, white man's sickness for her. Survival takes vision, skill. Canoe race harbors open, choked, light, eyes quick glint, not for money, but laughter, pride. Beyond the tin roof steeple rise, tracks, bush traversed by, inroads money makes. Take the tomahawk displays, its relic clubs, dust-grained carvings acquired and oohed at over hot cakes past the maple beach blonde fries. With salmon berry bear and other equals, woods, sea, sky. Mountain bears its own remains, dismembered hand, fuselage. A marsh grass mist, the slipways waver through, they wait, who never depart. No end in sight, but the weekend carload of grass, groceries and kids, illegal beer, for what? Gold crucifix? Time does not redeem the city, bringing it all up. How Pacific Center, under the pavement of parking lot. Foundation of old hotel, and then some dirt, lumber, coal, some trail to clamshells. So I'm going to move to the more current poems. On the cover, this photograph taken by Fred Herzog, very early morning, approaching the old CPR PRD. You see a ghostly image of the Marine building. I had written this poem before I saw his image, but as soon as I saw it, I knew I had to have it for the book, and he very kindly agreed. A lapsed taste for Art Deco, geese wing geometric, read-only memory, online horizontal sunbeams, settled heyday that was Marines, elevated crabs consort with streamline, modern, a pattern imperial pits and lands we read Hobbes' ambition by, touched with gold in morning after fog and traffic. King, I thought, he breezed through burnished doors and walls, sequester office feet in Oxford Road, tobacco pocket clang of elevated doors, that daily matinal tide on battleship's lino, later replaced by binary data residual, tint sea green slants, northeast, southwest, and sunny Berard's angular shadow labor, losses, hand-eye skill, coordinate, a quickening touch by definition, ice cream melt. Topsed, till 39, proximal harbor, beckoning world waters, rising melts, silver reflex glory, warped in visual stacks, washed by noon anthem yaw, its quick pitch noontide rush, pedal, pedestrian you, correct for agreement. Your silver dollar shine, my dry money plant. This one, this one is linked. It's one of a pair, and this first one was written for the missing women of our city. Comes walking up through horror in the way of vision, salt. Stay, she come through walking, woodblock paving, cedar crack, dark wit, she'll come, heron eye and quick. Kelp feather hair, her stilted walk. Comes walking grief transformed. Through storm-drained city outfall metaphor she wades. Through rain's choleric traffic thrum, he slows. That bristle shudder hers, feathers long along her neck, and peering back intuits, disregards, is gone. Twice shafted, slime fisher, diacetyl bitter. Body is gift, sperm, rock. And this is its hair. Marine eye. Body of water, you came wet, you come, reaches of the sea through metropolis, mother tide, docked and watermark culture, your first growth log, saloon, hotel, boots, you side slip keels. To dwell, inhabit streets, you lap, you shine, rains, anterior head turner, albedo gleam unfurled. Small arm of the sea, fringed, infringed by dockside gantry cranes, beacon, K-line rolling, stock she current with spirit or energy, a lot more than objects. Mirrors dazzle creekwise, a riverine with its tip to Art Deco sign, Rainier's all-woman character, once restaurant bar, its taxi stand for 1920s Black Mariah line-up, long skirt, straw hat, thought of entrance later, 40s girl, shoe shine smile to his pervasive business shoe, his liquid lunch in the elbow, hail below, chauffeur blows in cars, later incurs hardly a culture of safety. These liquid assets about to drain the real estate cult. She streams through outfall, tidal muck, harbor, rain, striated heart, and all its submerged relations, mourning what can't be replaced, the rift, the mind, cracks in the carefully patterned concrete. Still Muriel Mar, a sign, the rains, a place where hope comes, mildewed maybe, rusted fire escape, impossible roots gnarl up through, grime to white, full shine in her. Alive, oh. And the last one I'll read is for Jericho. Approach. Along a log-lined path, seagrass trod, now folk fest crowd, amped up, boom, adrift where herring once its porta potty flattened grass or kite snagged trees. Pick me some apples, then, to seal girls, no hand, no foot climb. He shook the tree, and down she came. Salt submerge across transformed terrain. Refugia dream. This rotting pier, salvaged bridge rail, salt rust and shaky. Over your pole went with the first cast, opaque seal, tears below. Here was good camping ground. Here, spring water, long grass, silk familial, unhoused. Did not Jeremiah once dwell in Jericho, Logger Jerry's wit lament, a different earth and iffy myth transpose? RCAF Jericho Beach Air Station's hangars house. Seaplanes and flying boats, the Flying 7 pilot biplanes. Woman's place is in the air, she said, the base. Its props and pigeon locks await war's turn, no plot unowned. No conference unmanned. Alternative habitat, clap, view hangars, shape of longhouse, hope for community, no plastic, just wood. Reeds hide eyes, transform end wall, hand milled seating hired, an ordinary person, craft dye, rock banners come by transit, foot or bike. Grassroots, Platt said. Grassroots, refugium. Long gone space and climate change, now anthropogenic. Thank you.
Hello. Our last reader of the evening is Stephen Collis, who was a professor of mine at SFU, who gave me really bad grades. I'm just trying to embarrass every single person tonight. How am I supposed to know what Jeff Dirkson's talking about? That's a joke. I knew what he was talking about. Stephen Collis is the author of several books of poetry, including the Dorothy Lifestay Poetry Prize on the material, winning on the material, and 3 parts of the ongoing Barricades project, Anarchive, the Commons, and the recently released To the Barricades, which is not for sale. An activist and social critic, his writing on the Occupy movement is collected in Dispatches from the Occupation, which is also available. Please welcome Stephen Collis.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for sticking it out so long. It's late. I'll try and be as brief as I can. I want to begin by thanking the Tsleil-Waututh, the Musqueam, and the Squamish people for hosting us tonight on their traditional lands. Thank all of you for being here, and Talonbooks were always such a pleasure to work with. Everyone in every aspect. We've done 2 books in rapid succession, so I really wanted to thank Greg Gibson, that we worked very closely with, and he's been a marvelous editor and chaperone and real help, and it just feels, I'm always curious about those visual aspects, and he's done such a wonderful job on that. This book, To the Barricades, rounds out something of a trilogy with Anarchive and the Commons. That trilogy doesn't necessarily mean something's complete. Something's complete, but there's still an ongoingness with this thing I've been referring to as the Barricades Project, and an attempt to, well, I think with this book, what really has become clear to me is that I'm working with a kind of trans-historical solidarity. There's something we really crucially received from the past, but also something that we really owe to the past to complete. So I think that's where this book goes. Dear Common, Vancouver. I choose to believe in the natural consciousness. I see what the deer see. George Oppen. Dear Common, in Vancouver we slip amongst money, coast mists, and lumber memories, wondering if rain falls equally upon the heads of the rich and poor. No noblesse for this oblige, as companies mine death to deliver largesse. But city of sightlines and seawalls, where can I lay my natural consciousness here, my animal spirits unleashed into the waters of the streams, corralled in culverts beneath the non-existent paving stones? Rhetoric is a glass font, a chromed entrance to banks and soaring offices. My language is simple and inert. I might turn to the sentence as a prison or an escape. Dire predictions stop nothing. The arteries fill tunnels and bridges with unbarricaded traffic. A flash mob is one thing. The way the mountains shoulder their load of snows is another. No Atlas, no Olympus, but to see what the deer see is a revolution of another kind. Dear apparatus of accumulation, you platform for capital we call home. There are demonstrations, and we demonstrate. Police wear yellow reflective vests, and some of us have reflective vests too, directing traffic to the manifestation of other ends. No monetary reasons in mind. Like I could love another. Seems almost ontological. The lift of their limbs or voice raised to know this, know that, and affirmation is the sound we make individually, though somehow the same, spatially and temporally united. You know whose streets are streets. Vancouver is not a march or an occupation, but it seems so in its fixity, which we'd unleash all this movement course together, but work on smoothing the edges, where one breaks off and another begins. You see, we spilt this city over indigenous land, mountain spirits found amid heaped beaches. Something primitive, say, commerce or colonization, the blunt heads of culture, driving stakes until indignant and damn, I'd kick my juice. If rhyme was a drug, I'd sell it by the gram. Vancouver, you light between mountains and the sea, where derricks crane and condos never cease to amaze. Dear Common, a city is no essence, but this conversation, this address, is something close, though it's tricky to see clearly when even the cops ride bikes and green things become a market of seeming values. So boxed voices say, what are you protesting against? The lap of luxury and medicinally planned peace? Or is it just your profession to be in the streets? All these signs and bullhorns in your basement just waiting for a cause, some predictable riot against government's disdain. Dear effects of tireless treason, the social only shuffles if you move your feet. We've learned this in a place invaders call Vancouver, even if we were only a few, and even if it rains on the day of demo. Dear Common, what we love about this place is outside the accumulation of real estates or pileup of colonial collisions on an unmarked historical highway bleeding resources into the chemical seas. You see, as lights dimmed over the downtown east side and tents went up in a vacant parking lot where developers dreamed of condos sleek in their reflective skins, who could tell how far we were from a 19th century Paris we built and unwittingly rebuilt in our radical minds? I'll tell you, next time we stream into the city, celebratory and decked in red, it will be for no hockey game, no civic or national spectacle, but the ghosts of solidarity's past, grabbing hold of the material city, stone by shaking stone, to heave it into the sea or onto a raven's sleek back. If this weren't a poem, I would want to talk of protests, of marches in these streets, the force of voices and flags, a group singing loudly, a group carrying what looks like a silk dragon, a group with masks and a makeshift battering ram. I would want to say Paris, say revolution, say Paris and Vancouver touch, known and unknown, but it is not true, and we go on ignorant of the we have been becoming. So long, they say, so long to all that anger and dissent, so long we are government, and you have nothing to do with us, and we have everything to do with you. So long, Paris, hello, Vancouver. Hold on, I say. I ask, Have we arrived yet, or have we begun or even returned from having begun once before? Hold on, Brigitte de Pape on the Senate floor with your sign, Stop Harper, Stop Louis Napoleon. We are coming, or we have been, or we are on our way back from Paris and our barricaded hearts. Vancouver, I've seen you on the day of protest, stream along streets to work or between appointments or yoga or shopping in your various hotnesses, ignoring us and the noise we make, the color of our banners or the precise words we printed there or which we chant, the normal of banks and Starbucks and boutiques, oblivious to the rain and the gulls or pigeons hunched above trolley wires. And I was frightened by the gray stone of your milled eyes, the crystal of camera lenses, sound of a band or game at the stadium. And I ran with these strangled others towards an endless line of cops or some large vacant parking lot, late with nothing and no one there, just a lone and thin bear eating garbage or an orca gasping on the pavement, having burst from the ground. Someday I'll actually use punctuation in my poetry, and therefore I'll be able to breathe, and then it won't be just one long breath in each poem, which is what it seems to be right now. Okay, 2 short poems, then we're done. I promise. Because I'm just going to read part of this one, which is called Come the Revolution, for Larissa Lai. Larissa, are you here? No? Shoot. I know, Larissa's in Toronto, something like that right now. Come the Revolution. Come the revolution, we will the revolution. We will return to the revolution, return to the sensuous body of language. Come the revolution, we will return to the sensuous body, and sound will propel us through the barricades of others, the revolution through the barricades of otherness, and come as mere sparks will spark us. Come the revolution anew, and we will the revolution come anew, and irony will no longer bind us. The sensuous body of language lift us, fringe to feather to fold us, the sensuous body of our methods, single togetherness, and come the revolution, we will have time the revolution, time to live the silent lives of animals, the revolution. Animals we have lost, that is, animals we have killed, the extinctions, corrupt economies, come the revolution, throwing off sparks, and new economies will throwing sound will propel us, and through the revolution, sensuous, the animal walls we are as producers and consumers, as time and sound, and the sensuous body of language will come the revolution. When banks will have shaken, banks shaken to shivers, come the revolution. All fossils fuel for their own revolution. We will come, and walking as sound through sensuous bodies formed, we will walk through an endless park, sensuous a park. We will walk, and from each of our abilities to each of our needs, through sound the revolution. Come sensuous, come stroll, come the revolution. We will through the bird song and singular birches come the transformations of home, and together the revolution. This ecos will echo the sensuous body I speak of, together the revolution. Through this others effulgence, so others come the revolution. We will echo new limits, we will wrap self-governance in limits, wrap the sensuous body of human tongue in animal revolution, self-governance and bios in animal wrap, sound all lifted to be level, so small habitations and habits to be level, animals and sound and sensuous bodies, small hearths of animals own, all of us animals come the revolution. We will come to be animal, to be sound, sing the revolution. We will sing the swords of song, sing swords into song, songs through the flowers, through fields, sing bees through these fields, sing chemicals out of oceans, sing economies, capacities, even sing balance, sing home, sustainable, sing sustainable, come sound, sensuous bodies, sustainable, sing songs of the absence of oil and death in the oceans, unsustainable, of tanks and guns and airstrikes, unsustainable, of endless colonial occupations, unsustainable, profit, motive, and equity investments, unsustainable. Sing, come the revolution. Sing a jubilee for the revolution. Sing, come hammer, come storm, the revolution will come, and we will as animals, as sensuous bodies begin to be born.
All right.
That was a good breath. I think some people don't breathe much. I'm one of the people, the kind of person just doesn't bother to breathe much. I gotta breathe more. So one last poem, going back to the past. So thanks again. Thanks everybody for sticking around. And thanks Talon for putting on such an awesome show there as usual. This is called To the Barricade on the Rue de Tortille, May 28th, 1871. In the fields, lightning flashes, where until now only madness reigned, and every city is beautiful to me, despite the tidal wave of conservatism, uneven development, and global gunplay. Though the scope may have become smaller, the walls against which we are shot have grown wider, and the means of shooting more varied, finessed, televised, updated. The reform of consciousness, the dream about ourselves, that much harder to awake from the coffins we carry mobile in our hands. But I digress. The differentials of time hold secrets we can't unlock. Dear final foray of the barricade. I'm gonna start that again. It's too many wines into the night now. Dear final foray, last barricade of the commune. Bees lift subway tiles, and lakes leave gated beaches. It is forever nearly dawn. A small animal still escapes a battered downspout. Children continue to mold lead bullets with thimbles, while at night girls once again drag paving stones to the barricades where they've occupied the city centers, some sort of tool at work on their hearts, tinkering away at the battle for tomorrow. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you to all the readers. Their books are still available. You've been a wonderful audience. Thank you. Have a great night.